bit earlier this week, and that's why I didn't want to, like, I was kind of really reluctant to record partly too, because I know everything that's going on, and I just didn't want to be that like entitled, privileged white guy who's sitting in his house with like a belly full of food around 6 pinball machines every day, and like don't have to, like, I get to work, I get a paycheck, I get all those things, and like my job sucks. Like, I just didn't want to be that guy, and
Yeah, I can relate to that part, certainly.
and I, you know, because I just don't. Even at least I'm self-aware, I guess. I just don't want to fucking be that guy, and I don't know. I literally don't have the words to express my feelings that I have with what's going on. It just makes me cry if I think about it too hard, and terrified. I really feel like I'm trying not to sound like a conspiracy theorist, but I feel like there's this culmination happening, and I'm really fearful of a tipping point, and I'm not fearful of America, the true America, not the America that Trump represents. Like, I am really okay with America standing up for itself and standing up for tyranny and standing and doing what it has to. We did it, before, and we can do it again, and that's okay. What I'm terrified about is that portion of America is the portion with money and power and guns and influence, and what they've been able to get away with for the last 3 years. What might they be able to get away with if they can justify their actions by any means necessary? And what a perfect situation it is to have everybody in lockdown right now and kind of have them at a little bit of control. And it scares me, absolutely scares me. There's did you see the video of the white guy with the black umbrella who there was a group of protesters in Minneapolis who were standing next to an AutoZone, and they were peacefully protesting. They weren't destroying anything. They were just standing there. And, a lot of AutoZones look a lot alike. And so, like, down the side of the building where you would park, it's just all like plate windows, right? Like, and there might be shelving on the other side of those windows. So they're just like orange glass. You know what I'm talking about? And they're standing there protesting, and they're recording the protests, of course. And there is action happening across the street, but this group of protesters aren't in the video, aren't doing anything but standing there. And one of the person who is recording this particular video is recording the things that are happening across the street. And in the video, you hear glass shattering, and they turn to a person in a black trench coat and a gas mask and gloves, black gloves, and a hood, carrying a black umbrella with a sledgehammer, shattering the windows, just walking down the line and shattering each one of the windows. And the protesters are trying to stop him. Like, don't do that. They'll shoot you for that shit. Like, you can hear them saying these things like, they'll shoot you for that shit, man. Like, don't do that. Don't do that. And they're trying to chase him down. And and as soon as he gets recognized, he starts making a beeline, like, away from that group. And when they finally corner him, it's a white guy. And they believe, they're like, are you a fucking cop, man? They believe it's a cop, like, out trying to make it look worse than it actually is, and trying to incite violence against these protesters. And I know it's one-sided, and I know it's only one angle of that video, but that fucking is terrifying. That's terrifying.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. They're here. we're hearing that the people getting arrested, the looters and stuff, a really high percentage of them are from out of state. They're not from these communities at all, and they are coming
Yep.
in just like that to sort of paint a picture and
Yep.
and try to spin things. A lot of them are white supremacist groups and stuff like that, and it's they're oh yeah, it's so fucked up. I mean, I don't know what to say about any of it. I don't mind talking about it on record, just to, I don't know why. I don't know who would listen to us, but I think, I don't know. Like, I don't know, but I do, it's like, I have thought at times that it's important to not talk about things I don't know what, and of course that's true, but I guess I'm realizing it's important to talk about it at all.
Yeah.
And for white people to talk to other white people about trying to be better. Like, it's not going to happen without us. Yeah, it's fucked up. I feel like sick to my stomach a lot of the time.
Yep.
It's hard to know how I might feel differently if it wasn't. It's not in my backyard, but it's so close. I mean, it's proverbial backyard.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if we weren't in lockdown, I would be up in those areas a lot. I mean, not on the same block, but certainly not far from it.
We were just in that city last.
Oh,
like,
yeah. Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
I know.
Jesus Christ! Like,
yeah,
we tooled around that city for an entire day. And
yeah.
I swear I've recognized a couple of the places I've seen and shit. Like, where
Probably, yeah.
you know, because we commented on how diverse of a city it is and how it has all of these different niche communities across it, and
yeah, it's weird because I think of Minnesota in general and perhaps Minneapolis and St. Paul in particular as being like this overly progressive place by and large. And maybe it's because, well, I don't know. Yeah, it's like, just in case I end up including some of this, or who cares? I'll cut it out. But like, maybe it's because where I work. So it's going to be by the educated people or people trying to be educated. But even there's a lot of like, you see a lot of the same shit, you know, that's been drummed up by the sort of Trump movement or whatever that is, the kind of empowering people and like people in positions of intense like privilege talking about as though they're the victims of I don't know. Yeah, it's hard to like find any words even. But so when I was shocked about a lot of this, the bride was like, she's like, oh no, the Minneapolis Police Department in particular has a terrible reputation for police brutality, etc. And she was teaching earlier. She's teaching a research class. It's nothing to do with this topic anyway. But so she was like, how in the world am I going to teach these kids today about research or try to engage them? And she's like, it's just like you and I were texting about a bit where it's like, who knows what to, like, everything seems foolish and frivolous when this is what's happening.
right.
And anyway, but she ended up just kind of making a space for them to talk about like how they were feeling about it. And so I was downstairs, she's upstairs, and I'm kind of walking back and forth and kind of trying to set this stuff up a little bit, feeling like, oh good, I kind of know what to do with my body for a minute. You know, set up microphone. And, I just kept hearing her say these things. I wish she wasn't recording. It was kind of similar to where she was moving towards the portion of her lecture that was going to be substantive to the course material, and then hit record so that the students could, if they need, weren't feeling up to it or whatever, could take care of themselves, go help clean up the community, whatever, like, and they could listen to this later. But she was making this time to talk with them about and have them help, just allow for them to process if that's something they needed. And
Right.
But the things that she was like kind of moving through and talking about, I didn't know about any of them. And some of it had to do with like things you can do and where, like how police departments are funded. I don't know. Like it's all just so beyond me. But I eventually, so I went from like trying to do my thing and listening with one ear to like taken my slippers off so that I could not, so I could hear better above the clack of my feet on the floor. And then I ended up just like sitting on the stairs with my computer, like downloading, archiving podcasts while I just listened with rapt attention to everything that she was saying. And I told her before I got on here, I was just like tearfully, it's like, Jesus Christ, dude, you're an incredible person with a mind that can process this kind of information. Like I can't hardly fathom. And what you're doing for these kids, like, is so great. And like, I was like, were you recording all of that? Cause I would listen to that on a regular basis just to understand, like, and to feel like, what can I do in this? Anyway, it was really inspiring to hear it all, but there were some actionable items that now I don't know what any of them were, but thankfully I have access to her and she can tell me.
Yeah.
But even her, she was like paralyzed with, I need to do something. I don't know what to do. And then she goes and has this conversation with these kids. I'm like, do you have any conception of what you just did for those kids and all the, I don't even know if they're kids or grad students or what, but on all the lives that they will touch, or just what you did for me just now as a human being. And yeah, so it's interesting. She can get sort of paralyzed with despair and feeling like she's not doing enough. But on the same hand, she was talking, all the things she talked about seemed so immensely helpful. Anyway, so she mentioned this one book that she's been using to teach around issues like this about race, called So You Want to Talk About Race, by an author whose name she can't pronounce either.
Yeah.
And she's like, this is like, I did actually type that. I'm going to read it because I don't know what to do about anything. I don't know how to talk about any of this. And this book, I guess, is supposed to help. Or she says it's like a super good resource. So I'm going to tell you what she said. She said, if you're looking for a book that talks about systemic oppression, and I actually can't see very well. This is really small print. She says this is where, and is really clear about, and is super practical, really clear about, here's what you do. Here's like how to not step in it, like how not to fuck up as a white person or whatever. She's like, and this is a super easy read and a very practical guide. So I was like, yeah, I need that. So I guess it's trapped in her office right now. But
it's called Let's Talk About Race.
It's called So You Want to Talk About Race.
Oh, So You Want to Talk About Race.
There's an audio version too, but I was just like, I don't know. I was trying to think.
Yeah, it might be something good to notate.
Or just not to die. I don't know. She was talking about when she feels like that thing of like, what do you do? And I can't, she's like, if I feel paralyzed by this, I start to make a plan of like action steps of what's one thing I could do every day. She was telling stories about anyway, I don't know if it matters. But very practically, she was talking about like different people have their different comfort levels around these things and things that they're able to do or not do. And that's okay. And where you might not be comfortable door knocking, you could be the chauffeur. She's like, she did a ton of campaigning or door knocking around the 2004 election up in Duluth, and she was telling the story about a friend of hers or someone involved, because I think she was like working with the Democratic Party. Anyway, so this person was not at all comfortable door knocking and drove her around. And she's like, it was hugely helpful for me. Like if I got someone slammed the door in my face or I had some bad interaction, I could get in the car and process it with her. And it was, she would just drive to the top of the street and meet me there. And she's like, that would have sucked if I had to like go back to my car and drive and park. And anyway, so she was given these sort of practical things that you can do. And I thought for myself, like, feel guilty about what I do and don't do. And I was like, well, I could get that book from her. I guess it's in her office.
Yeah.
And read like a chapter a week. That's like something I could try to do to just, I don't know, move myself forward in my ability perhaps to talk about this kind of thing. I don't know. But it's, so much like helplessness and despair and disgust. I didn't watch the video of the guy, and then last night I thought maybe I should. And so I like did a search. And it actually didn't come up because so much has happened in the like 4 days or whatever since that occurred.
Yeah.
But there's some new video that came out that show all three police officers kneeling across his body, and I did watch that, which was only like 30 seconds. I was like, fuck. And it's just so one of the other things that she said that stuck out to me was like people were talking about like the civil, not her students, but in general, people talk about how the civil rights movement in the 60s was, I think I'm getting this right, of what they're referring to. These were peaceful demonstrations on all this. And she's like, no, they weren't. Like, if you look at the actual history of certain things, like they weren't peaceful. Like, people weren't paying attention until white people started getting involved in a violent way. And that's when things actually started to change. That's the sentence I heard. I don't know anything about it yet, but I don't know. Yeah, it's crazy because before all of this happened with this, tragedy, already I was like feeling so fucked up in the world, with the pandemic and the divisiveness that we experience now. Like, you wouldn't necessarily know how someone felt unless they told you, or they let something slip, or they have a Trump sign in their yard, or like the guy across the street had a flag for a while. But then it's like you go out to run some errand and see like all of these people like defiantly not wearing masks, and they're just like announcing, or then you see videos of those people like when someone's asking them or whatever, like coughing on people hatefully, and it's just like, it's also overwhelming.
People protest, like blocking ambulances getting into hospitals. People, I don't know, like over haircuts and just stupid shit. When a month before that, those same people were fucking hoarding toilet paper and hand sanitizer and putting the economy. How in the fuck can the economy rebound in the same week that we have more unemployment, more people unemployed than the Great Depression? Like, in the same week, the economy rebounds and we have so many people. I don't get it. Like,
and it's hard to even know if that's, I mean, true. Truth is so subjective.
And I mean,
right now,
the stock market has been not the economy. I meant the stock market. Jesus, okay. I'm using the wrong words. Fuck. But the stock market was on the up, just as like so many, just the numbers of unemployed started to come in at the beginning of. I mean, the stock market has fluctuated crazily since this all started. Everything feels so wrong.
Yeah,
it just feels wrong. Yeah. Like,
everything feels wrong right now.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I never hit record on the video.
Oh, I know. Yeah,
So we can just keep this audio. I think they retired Hangouts. So.
Oh, really? They've got some new thing. Because whenever I sign into Google, they're like, start this. I don't know what it is, though. I haven't actually done it.
It's like Google Chat or something. I forget. It's not
Google Meet
Chat.
or
Google Meet. I think that might be it. So, it's so fucked up, man.
It really is.
Just like
it really is.
I thought I was handling it okay, and then the last time we recorded and everything that like came from that really showed me that I probably wasn't handling it all okay. I haven't drank since then, by the way.
Really?
And I don't think I'm gonna. I mean, Ash and I have some plans to. We're gonna try a 30-day challenge, different than the one that we did before.
Mm-hmm.
We're making this one.
Meaning, like, you're gonna make it up?
Like, we're making up rules of things that we want to do for 30 days.
Oh, so not just adopting a program, but like these are things. Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. So like, and we're supposed to be brainstorming our rules, and then tomorrow, that's why I would have a hard stop if we would have recorded tomorrow.
Oh, you've got like a time set to.
Yeah, because we're gonna meet and then we're gonna talk about and come up with our plan. And June 1st on Monday is when
Oh,
we
that's
start the plan.
cool. And that's the month. Yeah, it's a 30-day month, right? I'm making that up.
Yeah, maybe I don't know.
30
Maybe it
days,
is.
half September, half April, June, and November. I could be getting that wrong.
It is a 30-day month. Yeah, so it works.
Yeah, that's kind of cool.
But things like we both are trying to do intermittent fasting, so 30 days of sticking to our eating plan, and then 30 days of sticking to our calories, and 30 days of not eating out. All easy stuff that would be good, positive changes for us, which is nice. We've been doing terrible at all this stuff since quarantine happened. So,
Oh man, you're not alone there. It's like it's
yeah,
new rules somehow.
yeah, I know.
And it's such a
Like,
fucked up time. It's like any way you can cope or find comfort.
yep.
Yeah.
Our consumption of media has like vastly, because what do you do? What can you do? It's not like, and what's crazy is I thought we were homebodies before,
Mm-hmm.
like I thought we were kind of like sluggish and just like, but this since March has just been, it's atrocious how bad it's gotten, just like, because what else can you do but sit there and consume anything, So my pinball game has drastically improved. That's one thing.
That's good.
Unfortunately, so is Ash's.
Oh.
So, yeah.
Do you guys play? So like we would play like I have a turn and you have a turn, and so it's like you're playing against each other, sort of.
Yep, just like that. Sometimes we'll play where like she'll be player 1 and 3 and I'll be 2 and 4, so we can play a 4-player game and just get more times to play, basically. We just been doing a lot of that, doing a lot of watching stuff. We got HBO Max. Did you guys get that?
Not yet. No, but I've heard that it's like kind of they're trying to give the Netflix a run for its money. And so do they have all Warner Brothers properties?
Yeah.
Wow.
And Adult Swim and Cartoon Network and Turner Classic Movies is on there. Yeah, there's some good stuff on that. Like,
so it's kind of like the channel, or it's like an app or it's like their archive.
No, it's like their archive, like, because you can go in and watch the movies, like, right in.
Huh. That's interesting.
So, it's astounding how much is in there. Yeah, Looney Tunes, those are in there. Like good classic Looney Tunes cartoons. Of course, like the kids portion is a big part of any of these streaming services now. So this has Sesame Street and, like I said, Cartoon Network already. A couple other ones. So it and then all the HBO content, of course. So
yeah, all their original TV series and stuff like that.
Yep.
Comedy
plus whatever they're rotating on the channel at that point in time.
Television
channels at the time. So like right now, Joker is in their lineup.
Yeah. We have HBO via Amazon. Like it can, like we have the channel and somehow pay for it through the Amazon app. I don't know.
Oh, like what they're broadcasting?
I think prior to
or
whatever
the HBO Go.
It's probably HBO Go. That's what it is.
Then it should have converted to HBO Max.
Oh, really? Holy
yeah, then you might have HBO Max.
Well, that sounds great. Wow.
Either that or maybe I don't know, double check that, because like I get HBO Max through Hulu, like the same way.
Yeah.
But like as an add-on to Hulu.
Oh, okay. We just switched to YouTube TV instead of cable like in the last couple of weeks.
How do you like that so far?
A lot. I actually, I only watched. I don't mean this in a. It sounds so pretentious to say. I don't watch TV like that. I haven't used it for TV without her, but I watch stuff with her. But she just like runs it. So
yeah.
But it seems kind of slick in that You can just like, you hit plus for a program and then it adds all the, and so I got a, because her dad's been a proponent of it for a while. And so I did a 30-day trial after he visited to try to see if we could switch over to it. And she just never really got on board. And then she never tried it, I think. Anyway, so she was reticent, like me, she's reticent to change certain things. And, but we were just having enough trouble with our cable provider and stuff that we made the switch, and she really likes it. Oh, we got Roku is how we're operating it most of the time.
Oh yeah, Roku is.
Yeah.
We have a Roku TV, and we used a Roku stick. We like Roku. It's good.
That's our first kind of foray into anything like that, and so that's been fun. And I've been using it to like I can put the YouTube app, and so just watch. Like last night, I watched Pearl Jam's 1992 Pink Pop performance on YouTube on the TV, which
does it give you YouTube, like the YouTube Premium along with YouTube TV? Like, do you get like commercial free YouTube?
It could, yeah. Actually, I have the Long Walk Short Drink channel in there, which is attached to that.
Of course.
Sometimes I don't know. Like last night, I didn't do it for some reason because I didn't want to. I don't know why. I was like, well, I didn't want our feed to be all Pearl Jam stuff. I was like, it doesn't matter anyway, but.
Well, that's just our recommended, though. That's
what we as users
log into YouTube, not what our users see.
Oh, I know what it was. Yeah, it was because I wanted to find it through the history, and I happened to have looked it up on my personal account. But anyway, I could switch over to that and use it seamlessly. I've kept the Criterion app, and so I've watched things on that a fair amount, like at least one movie a month, and I don't know. It's just been cool. And so I love the idea that we have this other reservoir of this Max thing, possibly.
Yeah, HBO. Possibly. Rick and Morty, I would highly recommend.
I watched a bunch of those with Krams when he came out here because that's his favorite thing, it seemed, or whatever. Yeah. And I enjoyed it. I just don't watch, things like that on my own for some reason. Even stuff I would like. I don't know why. I watch one. I'm the TV I watch on my own. I think I told you last time. I've watched like an episode of Mad About You on DVD before I go to bed.
Oh man, you're like Ash.
So what's her thing?
You've Got Mail. Guarantee you, if she happened across You Got Mail right now, like playing somewhere, she would just like
stop everything.
It would just and it would
great.
Just watch it. You've Got Mail. She loves The West Wing.
We just started that. We're like 3 episodes in. We watched it when it was on, but I'd never seen it, and I'm loving it so far.
She goes through this like 3-year cycle where she like wants to like binge The West Wing every 3 years, and then Friends. Did I say Friends already?
No, but that makes sense.
Just like could just randomly pick she even said because Friends is on HBO Max. She's like, I could watch that episode 1 to the last episode and never get bored. Mm-hmm. And not want to skip any episode. Yeah. Big Bang, because that reruns. There's like a 7 o'clock Big Bang episode, and then 7:30 is Jeopardy, and that's her jam. Like she does that every weeknight. Like,
nice. Jeopardy every weeknight.
Every week,
great. She must know a lot of stuff from watching that.
Yeah. And the Big Bang is in syndication. They don't syndicate the entire series. They just syndicate like so many episodes or whatever, or what's been cleared for syndication, like from one reason or another. So it's a much more limited pool of episodes that they have to pull from. And because seasons might have certain rights that are for distribution going to a streaming service, so they might not have like broadcasting rights to those episodes at that time. So those pools are just constantly changing, and they will stay that way for a little while. And so it's really common with I think any rerun in syndication, once streaming really screwed up a lot of the right stuff. And so, but it would just come down where it felt like there was really only like 22 episodes that were just regularly being rotated every day. Right. And so like, you'd get on and it'd be like, this fucking episode, we've seen this episode like 6 times. Do we have to sit through and be told when we're supposed to laugh every like 30,
Yeah.
30 to 90 seconds
Yeah.
again? Like, no, we don't have to watch this one again. Like, and it's just, I actually, you would think there would be everything I would like about that show, and I really can't stand it. It's like, you would think it speaks to a lot of things that we like, right? And it just is like, it's something about that old school sitcom style with the like canned laughter, but
Yeah.
it's not actually like recorded in front of an audience, even though it looks like it's recorded in front of an audience, and
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
uh yeah, it just feels antiquated. It is the best
Yeah.
way to say it.
That's a great way to say it. I've noticed that too. I think we tried to watch when they put Will and Grace back on TV, and we were honestly
Yeah.
turned off by the same thing. We were like, it just doesn't feel right. I got back into Mad About You actually because they did like a 6-episode thing. That was one of the reasons why we didn't cancel our Spectrum a little sooner. It was a Spectrum original series. So
Yeah.
and so they did. I want to say it's like maybe it's 10. I don't know. They did a handful of new episodes, and put the whole back catalog in the on demand. Though I've been watching it on DVD on like a 4x3 TV. But
Awesome.
for some reason, I was just so happy to see those characters. And that's the convention of the show. That is part of what was familiar about it and comfortable was the dynamic of like that sort of laughter, right? And so it didn't bother me. But I think to see it on a new show, or I don't know, it's weird. I know just what you mean in terms of it being like, this doesn't feel right.
Yeah.
It's awkward. I've never gotten into that one either. The Big Bang.
So I don't know. But we still watch tons of YouTube, and she really gets into YouTube a lot. Our thing right now is her thing right now, and it's always our thing because most of the time we're watching this stuff together. But like she gravitates towards right now. Rescue videos are real big.
I'm not sure I know what kind of rescue.
Animal rescues, like dog rescues. There's this guy out in California called his rescue's called Hope for Paws, and it's all of the things that really kind of turn you off of YouTube once you spend a lot of time in YouTube. He does a really good job of like clickbaity titles and like really good screen caps, and for his thumbnails. And he has since like he has all these volunteers that I hate like bashing him too, because he does amazing stuff. So they're just observations I make. So these aren't opinions. I'm not saying anything about his charity. He does amazing things. If anybody hears this, like, we love what he does. I love all of it. It's just, we noticed in his earlier episodes, and I mean, some of these episodes are like 6 years old, right? And it's just him. Like, he's bringing these dogs back to his house and like recouping them in his house, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he has since amassed like veterinarian hospitals that let him just bring animals right into the hospital and they help get them back up. And like, he's got vets that do reconstructive surgery for dogs that have like limbs that are lopped off because some of these dogs have horrific things done to them, like terrible things.
Jeffrey,
like,
yeah.
I mean, you have Jeff,
yeah,
which Ash said, she's like, go up there and record with Dave and tell me what's happening with that dog. She means
good.
Jeff. So you got to give a Jeff update when I'm done bashing this poor guy who goes out and saves dogs. So again, like, so he has amassed things over this time, and you start to notice these like certain trends start to happen. Like his his like thumbnails like started to really change and fall in line with the trends that you see videos get views for,
Mm-hmm.
and like stuff like that. And that then in the videos, like, he stopped being like the main rescuer and started being more of the cameraman. And then like all these like female volunteers are out in front of the camera, like doing the rescue.
Are they
Like
dressed like that Tiger King guy's? Who's the one? Was his name Doc
no,
something? I can't
no,
remember.
like yeah, Doc Doc Antil. I think that's his
Antilles
name.
is isn't that a Star Wars
Yeah,
Captain Antilles
Wedge
or
Antilles.
Wedge?
Yeah, Wedge. No, Doc Antle, I think
Doc,
is
that sounds right. Yeah, like his
and
scantily clad
like his
helpers,
harem. No, that
right? Who
guy
turned out
that
to be
was
his
a
harem?
harem. Yeah, that was his harem.
Yeah.
No, he is actually. Ash told me that I think he is engaged to one of the women
Mm.
who since was what like he met her through this channel that he started. And God, he does amazing things and like has these amazing rescues with these dogs, and they're always like a good time amount for a YouTube video, and they are major tearjerker. Like I just cry through all of them, as long as they are a lot of animal videos. We're really struggling. We're having a lot of issues with Tank.
I just thought of that randomly, like yesterday, wondering how
Yeah,
Tank was, and I was like, oh, I have
and
this bad feeling that he's not doing well.
he's not really doing very good, and
Mm.
kind of deteriorating, and it's getting to the point where she's pretty much having to hold him up every time he goes poop. He won't even walk for me anymore.
Mm.
Usually it's just like, did I do the Trail of Turds? Did I talk about the Trail of Turds?
No,
So like,
I wish that wasn't such an appealing title. Trail of
it's not
Turds.
if you think of like Trail of Tears, right? Like
Oh
that's what
fuck yeah!
Facebook,
All
yeah,
right,
right.
thank you
So
for
like,
saving me from that.
yeah,
How
so
not
like,
to step in it. You must have read
yeah,
that book already.
yeah. So Trail of Turds is like the a side effect of this condition that he has is he can't tell when he has to poop and when he doesn't have. Like we have a sphincter, like shit could be falling out of us all the time
if
if
not
we
for
didn't,
yeah.
if not for the constant communication between that like the double sphincter barrier holding the shit in. And we get to, I'm pretty sure if my like high school anatomy is right, if I wasn't snickering enough through this lesson, I'm pretty confident there's like two of them that work, like an internal sphincter and kind of an external sphincter, right? And so like those work in tandem in constant vigilance until like our like autonomous system tells us that it's okay to open up, like
Yeah.
well, the communication lines are for Tank are kind of like have a little bit of static in them. The line's not as clean as it should be, and so sometimes that message gets miscommunicated or doesn't get delivered. And so he could just be walking and literally leave like a trail of turds behind him and not even know that it's happening. So yeah, that makes for fun stuff. And then but when he does know he needs to poop, like he pretty much needs assistance to do it. And like he has a pretty stringent routine about how he walks through our neighborhood. And she was telling me like this morning, like he tried to climb up this little hill to smell a telephone pole that he likes to smell, and his legs gave out on him like when he was at the top. So then he like rolled down the hill and couldn't really get himself up on his own. You have to like, he can't even like hop into the house on his own, like that one lip to get into the door, you have to like, I just stick my foot under his butt and lift at the same time that he jumps, and he thinks he makes it. Like you think you can, and he's been in the last, it's just been this deterioration that's pretty evident and pretty hard, and it's going to be difficult when it happens. I know, so just another fucked up goddamn shitty thing. That's this 2020 fucking sucks me. It's like,
agreed. I don't know that you'd find anyone to argue with that.
all around. I thought 2019 was hard. Like I thought that was a hard year.
I can't even remember now. And I'm trying
Exactly.
to,
Exactly.
trying to remember something fucked up about it. I'm sure there's plenty, but I suddenly can't remember anything about 2019.
and it's happening all around the world. How about the shit with China and Taiwan and Hong Kong? Like,
I only have a vague. I only know
the
that there is something. I can't think what it is.
they're China essentially is getting ready to I'm gonna get it wrong.
You'll.
They're essentially preparing to take back by force the autonomous country of Taiwan, I believe. So like
Oh.
it is technically Chinese, like a Chinese country, but China, it originally at one point it was part of the British Empire. And so China forced out the British, or Taiwan forced out the British, and China like just let them run autonomously under the guise of we could still impose our will anytime we want over you because you're ours. And so they have recently made it abundantly clear that they're planning on invading and just using force and like imposing the will of the people, which is, communist speak for China. Like the Chinese government is going to bring them back into line by force.
What don't they like about how they're conducting themselves?
Because they're free and they're not,
Yeah. Good Lord.
It just, dude, it's so like when you start even just looking globally, it's so fucked up, man. Like I was telling Ash, it really is like, maybe it is an apocalypse. Maybe it is the end of something, or how me talking about Cannibalized, about how like, you never really see a movie, all those post-apocalyptic movies. It's really, you don't see the first like 8 months of the apocalypse. The movie's like, it's always like either just in the first days of it or in the aftermath of it. You never see like Mad Max is one of the few that I can think of that you see that the last remnants of society trying to cling on to this savage world that's like slowly working its way in, right? If you think of the Road Warrior, like the
actually,
Road Warrior is the sequel.
Mad Max
is the first one. Jesus, I confused it. Sorry, Twinkie. but he's still a cop, right? Like
they still have cops,
and they still have court and like there's a semblance of our current society that still exists in that movie. That's the only thing like that I can think of. But maybe we're living that right now. Like and we don't know it.
Right? Yeah, because how could we?
Man, is it hard to like sleep at night and hard to just like hold it together and not like, and then you start to feel like you're crazy. But then when your logic puts 2 and 2 together your entire life, and most of the time that logic is pretty good, and you start to piece together these bigger things together into line, and you're like, yeah, we're screwed. Like we already lost, I think. That's what I feel like. Like by the time the Jedi, this is so fucking nerdy that I'm about to compare this.
I'm ready. I can't wait now.
You know how like in episode 3, by the time Palpatine exposed himself to the Jedi, it was already too late. Like they're like the like plan had already gone off decades before that moment that they knew. And I think we might have done that. I think that might have already happened. And we're just now finding out. We're just now starting to see the beginnings of it actually being exposed. And it fucking scares the hell out of me.
Yeah. Yes, me too. There's this thing I kind of typed up because I wanted to share it with you because it surprised me it's kind of about all this, though it's much more about the pandemic. So there's a podcast that's coming out of the School of Public Health from the University of Minnesota, um, about the coronavirus. And I was listening to this one episode. Uh, it's called Health in All Matters, and it's a little boring, but this really surprised me. So I'll try to not read like all this. I typed this up from the podcast because I was like, it really struck me when I heard it. And I did this a few days ago before all this world got on fire in a new way. But so there's this historian called Kurt Brown, and he reads this excerpt from a letter that part goes like so, quote, because of that awful disease, all the towns and cities for miles around are closed, everything but the meat markets, grocery store, and dry goods stores. And then the letter goes on to say, in some places people have to wear gauze masks when they appear on the street. The government has closed all churches, schools, and theaters. And so even though that letter could have been written yesterday, it was actually written by this woman called Laverne Roquette in October 10th of 1918. And it appears in this dude's book, Minnesota 1918, when flu, fire, and war raged in the state. And there are other things like that. President Woodrow Wilson, who I had to look up was a Democrat, actively censored news about the pandemic, even though he himself had contracted the virus. And other similarities with the U.S. response was delayed by a couple of months. The Surgeon General at that time warned of two things: the possibility of the virus spreading even if you had no symptoms, and to be aware. The other thing the Surgeon General warned was to be aware of charlatans pushing worthless cures. He also goes on to say that one of the other similarities was the pushback when public health officials tried to impose those restrictions, and just like we're seeing today. He said that during this 1918 pandemic, it came in three distinct waves. So I guess Philadelphia had held a war bond parade that roughly 200,000 people packed in to see. Within 72 hours, the beds of the city's 31 hospitals were full. And I'm almost done here. In San Francisco, despite the chance of going to jail for 10 days and being fined as much as what in today's money would be about $1,700, skeptics formed an anti-mask league, saying that the masks were, quote, inconvenient and bad for business, end quote, and even punching holes in them so they could smoke. So all of this in this setting of a pandemic that killed tens of millions of people across the globe, and around 700,000 in the U.S. alone.
700,000.
Yeah, and so I think we're around the 100,000 right now. But yeah,
in what time period did they give a time period for that 700,000?
Let me see. Not in that quote.
Google it.
That's okay. I can. When did the flu pandemic?
I mean, we know that was like in the teens.
And yeah,
the 19-teens.
So it went from the pandemic says it went from January 1918 to December 1920. That's just what comes up.
So 700,000 people. Even if we said 700,000 people in 2 years, that's 250,000. So let's do some math on that. So that's
number of deaths is 50. Oh, there's 3 sets of zeros followed by another 3. So is that 50 million?
3 sets of zeros followed by 3 sets of zeros. Yeah, 50 million. Jesus. Tens of millions.
Location, it says Earth. Fuck. Confirmed cases, 500 million estimate. Anyway, sorry, what were you saying?
All right. So 500 million. So if we go with the 700,000 number, right?
In the U.S., yeah.
In the U.S., and we divide that by the 2 years that it raged, right? As a rough estimate, that's 350,000 a year. But then we need to figure out, all right, so then let's divide that by 12. And you're looking at roughly, you're looking at right around 29,167 deaths. So let's do that. So would you agree, we've kind of been tracking Well, let's go from when was the first case of COVID in America?
Type that real
January,
quick.
right?
Yeah.
Like, so January to now is 5 months.
Yeah.
So 6. No, we've had 5 full months. So I'm going to take 29,167 and I'm going to multiply that by 5. And if we're anywhere where we are compared to where we are with COVID, that will give us a rough estimate of where we're tracking compared to Spanish flu, right? Would you agree with that method?
I think I tracked that so far.
All right, so let's do times 5. And we're a little bit lower, but not a lot. So 145,000.
Well, and I looked,
right?
actually, the date it said was January 20th. So January was almost over.
Oh, so let's go 4. So let's go
Yeah.
4 months. And so let's just do 30,000, right? So 30, because that'll help in the favor of lowering the number, right? It would make it seem less scary. So let's go 30. No, I guess it would be benefiting us. But it was like 29,167. I think that's what it was. And we're going to multiply that by 4 then. That's only 116,000. So, which brings it closer to where we're at.
Like already?
Yeah. Like, so you're off of a margin of like, what, 14% or whatever. 1.6. Yeah, man, 16,000 divided by. I mean, you're looking at, right around like 14, a little over 14% off, which is a reasonable margin of error.
He did give in this piece, there was like the population then was about 1.8 billion, and it's now nearly 7.8 billion.
For the world.
Yeah, globally. I don't know if that.
I guess proportions would probably be a better rate. Well, I mean, but it's still like looking at the number of people that it knocks out if it's spread similarly. So
yeah, it's interesting.
Needless to say, like the parallels are interesting. Is that like
and I guess the idea that, you know, if you think about it, like the Roaring '20s, as it were, came after that, you know, and to imagine what life. Because I think it's easy, just like people are like, oh, we'll never gather again. And I don't know where that's coming from or what facts or science backs that up. But I'm coincidentally, well, actually, it's not coincidentally. It's because of what's going on. I'm working on this project, it's becoming a mini documentary, they're calling it, from this research profile I did of this one historian, American Indian historian, who does work around the jingle dress dance, which sort of is a tradition that emerged out of this flu pandemic of 1918. And so the legend goes that this young girl who was, you know, sick from the flu, and that there was some sort of, her dad made her this dress that had like Copenhagen cans on it, and she put it on and she was dancing and started to feel better. And so it became this like symbol of healing. And then for American Indian people, sound has a big component in like the way that spirituality, I guess, in the way that it moves through air. Anyway, they were celebrating the 100th anniversary of this tradition, and there's this museum in northern Minnesota, and so we did this profile on this researcher, and she wrote a book about it and all that. But so now we're exploring it because it's been coming back around again. Like there's like, and it's also this women's empowerment movement, and there's a political bent to it. But they're putting on jingle dress dances like young women now, and they're like dancing for healing around the pandemic that we're currently in. Anyway, so this researcher was telling me, she's like, American Indians in particular, like she's also a professor of American studies, separate from her sort of heritage or sort of ethnic identity, I guess. But she studies like whatever American studies means. But she's saying, like, as a country, we oftentimes don't have this like historical perspective that they bear in mind. She's like, American Indians like are pretty good at that. And she's like, this will pass. Like this will, end at some point and we'll have to heal, is what she's sort of saying.
Right.
So anyway, I've been thinking about the history of it in a way that because of this, that I wouldn't otherwise. And it's kind of comforting, I guess, to think about the idea that it will end. But we're also like confronted with all of this. We're not doing enough as a country, certainly like nationally, for government to help it end. Like they're just like this deciding that it's over, declaring that it's over because it's good for business. And it's so scary.
Hydroxychloroquine.
That'll help.
Where are the men like
I know
peddling snake oils, right? Like, I was telling Ash a really interesting observation of that. You heard, I'm sure, that like he had some kind of financial tie to hydroxychloroquine, right? Like that's why I was pushing it so much.
That makes sense.
And I said, you could figure that out really quick, because if you noticed, he slowed down every time he said it. He wanted to make sure he said the name correctly. So he would be on one of his like tirades and spews, and then he would say hydroxychloroquine, really slow, articulate it, get the brand out there. Wow. And go back and watch that shit. I'm sure there's montages of him peddling it, and just watch. He pronounces it accurately and articulates it very well every time that he says it. And just the ulterior motive and the abuse. It's the abuse of the American people is twofold. It's using their power to oppress those who are against them without that power, and their influence to use those that don't have that influence or power to support them. Like that want it. Those that don't have that power but want it, they use their influence to use them as their own, for their own gain. And it's this like twofold thing that of just so much division and so much, I don't know, victim culture. And it's on both sides. That's the part that I hate, is like, I feel like sometimes too, it's just like this competition to see who was the victim first. How fast can you say you're the victim? Who's the worst victim? And the real victims get lost in all of that. You know what I mean? And like, everybody can't be a victim. You know what I mean?
It's like what and this has been something that I've been working on in my own life, and so maybe I'm especially sensitive to see it in other people. But it's just like, both people can't. Well, it's not that both people can't be victim or both people can't, but like people have to just. It's just staggering to me that how much folks won't just say they're wrong. Like, I'm wrong, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Or like when someone's like, this is hurtful to me or whatever like that, or instead of just being like, no, it's not, and here's why it's not, just be like, oh, sorry. So the bride will often say, like, teaching around the what part of ouch don't you understand? Like trying to, when she's teaching around issues of oppression and stuff like that. And you get people, there's this like, people don't want to be wrong. They don't want to be in the wrong. But like this, Trump is like that. Like he can't, like he won't even admit to having said a word wrong. You know what I mean? He like invent this, like there's that thing where he's like, I didn't say that wrong. Like he can't.
The Sharpie thing with the map, like where like do you remember that? Like
no, I checked out for like honestly about when he started talking about pulling out of the World Health Organization. Something about, I just lost my mind.
Oh, no, this was last year. The map thing was last year, but
maybe wait, remind me. I'm ready. I can take it, I think.
So there was a hurricane coming that was about to hit inland, and he said, and the people of Alabama need to evacuate. And it was like Florida, Georgia, Mississippi, like they were all, and like the National Weather Service had to follow his tweet and say, no, like look at our maps, like the people in this state, like you're totally safe. And so then he had a press conference that was like, this is the map that I was shown. And he took the map that was from the National Weather Service, and you could totally see the projected landfall didn't it come anywhere near the state that he said needed to evacuate. And then there was a Sharpie that didn't even proportionally do it, just went out and he just drew this little oval off of that projection in a different style of ink. You could tell it was just a hand-drawn extension onto this map that barely touched into that state. And he's like, see, it goes into that state. That's why I said for them to evacuate. And then he put somebody in charge of the National Weather Service that made them go back and retract their tweet. Like, that could have incited a panic that could have cost people's lives.
Well, and he has cost so many lives through the, and it's like when I freaked out, I was like, I can't. I'm like not following even the so my news practice for years has just been like 5-minute updates a couple 2-3 times a day from morning, noon, and we're usually like morning before work on before I come home from like NPR, and I'm a sustaining member of that. It seems like an important thing to support, but I just stopped. Like I stopped because I couldn't handle it. I felt or whatever, and it was probably easily a month or maybe even more. And then in the last few days, I was talking to the bride, and I was like, I don't know who to believe. And she was just like, she was like, oh no, like, don't say that. She was just like, I can't hear that. She's like, that's how they win. If people like, if you're saying that to me, that she's like, the people in the press, like they risk their lives to cover these things, to bring so that the truth matters. Like, and if you just lump them all in together, then we could be doomed. And I was just, she said it way better than that. Like she completely turned me around where I was like, oh yeah. And so I started to re-engage and just listen the way I was. And it's so frustrating to me that I can't synthesize simple ideas like that, or just even repeat what she said to me that really changed my entire outlook and helped me get my head out of my ass. Yeah.
It's hard though. It is hard to know who to believe because it's convincing.
Yeah.
And then as we
feel like everyone's
technology
manipulating things.
Yeah. And technology throws everything because they can make anything look like anything now and it be believable, you know, like, and we're educated, intelligent people. And that doesn't, again, at the too late risk of sounding pretentious, but the masses, that is even it. I feel it would take even less. It needs to be even less convincing. It just needs to say what they need, what they want to hear. Like, that, you know, like it doesn't even have to be that convincing.
Sure. Right.
Just kind of just say what I want to hear, man. That's where we're at right now.
And then it's catered to by someone, and then you don't have to be confronted with uncomfortable things. And believe me, I don't want to be. The bride is this phrase. She's like, I am not conflict averse. She'll say, and she has the tools and training. And that's the thing about I think what I'm hearing when you say something like educated people. It's like we've had the opportunity to go to college and to learn like tools to learn, you know, basically, or to sort through information, etc.
We have been trained to learn. That's where I really think where I want to question something. Like I read an article, I want to know what their sources are, and I want to go out and I want to look at those sources, and I might read 3 articles about the same thing. And those 3 articles, one of them or maybe 2 of them might be from a news outlet I intentionally don't typically agree with their viewpoint.
This is exactly what the bride was saying to me. She's like, it's your responsibility to do that. You can't just check out and you can't decide that that the all of the news is wrong, because that's how the evil people can manipulate you, and that's how they do. And thank you for saying that, because that was part of what I guess I needed to hear.
And you have to do that. You do, like, and it's tedious. And that's the problem too, is like even the best stuff is still you can see the seeds of manipulation in it, like or of like trying to lean you in a different direction, or trying to work in like the Trump bash along with the facts. Like I am so sick. There has been in the last few months some stuff that they've blown up about Trump, and I'm just like, who the fuck cares? Like, see, I don't like. Now sometimes it does feel like you're just reaching and looking for something. Like, look, he's got enough. Why don't we just keep reporting about the like multiple tens of women who have accused him of sexual misconduct over his life that have been brushed under the rug? Why isn't that something we talk about every day?
Yeah,
like,
I think about that about him dismantling the pandemic, like the arm or whatever the fuck of the government that's supposed to be in place to deal with this stuff. I'm just like, why isn't that the first sentence about?
Why aren't we talking about that let's just talk like news stories every day, new angles every day. When was the last time you heard about kids in cages at the border? Do you know if there's still kids in cages down to the border, and how they're faring during this pandemic? I don't know. Because that just, even the news outlets that typically tell me the news that I kind of feel like I can trust on the surface, even them, they have stopped reporting it because they oversaturated that so much and beat that drum so much on both sides that nobody cares about it anymore. It's just in one ear and out the other. Meantime, I lay awake thinking about these hundreds of thousands of kids sitting in fucking barbed wire, like fences down at the border. That fucking thing is rolling through there, that COVID is rolling through those fucking
and the
things.
Close quarters of the confinement.
And like, why aren't we still talking about those fucking kids? No matter if it gets us ratings or not, why is that still just an update? Just still reminding you on top of all this other COVID shit that's going on. Our current administration is still keeping children in cages at the border. That's still happening.
And you know what's extra fucked up is if they weren't brown kids, we would be hearing about it every day.
Every fucking day. And it's just like,
this inherent racism that it sucks to talk about because and I had this one experience. I don't know if I've ever really told anybody about it. And I don't even know if I'm interpreting it correctly, but it was around the time when I was starting to just be exposed. You hear that word growing up, but you don't necessarily, coming from where we did in this small town where there really wasn't any racial diversity, almost at all. I mean, seriously, almost zero, none.
One or two non-white people.
Yeah. And I can't even remember any when I was
one or two families, because there was and I don't want to say their names because I don't want to single them out, but there was like so make sure you just beep these or cut them out. But there was like the like that, like they were
I don't even know them.
And she was in the grade behind me. Wasn't he in your grade?
That name rings a bell, and I just thought of like I think his name. He was obviously was and he came.
Yeah.
I think.
Yep. And then there was, when I lived in the villas, there was an African-American single mother and her daughter's name was Tanya. And for the longest time, they were like the only black people in Rittman, the only two.
I can't even think of any black people. There was this one kid that I remember I played like pre-Little League with, and that's all I remember.
And as soon as that girl graduated, they moved out. Like they left the town.
I can't blame. I mean, there's Confederate flags in the downtown area of businesses now.
It's fucking ridiculous.
And like gun magazines at the Stop and Go are plentiful.
Oh, did you fucking hear him? He was in was he in Virginia or South Carolina or something? And he's doing some schmoozing thing. And he's like, oh, did you hear they want to take your guns down there? Nobody wants your fucking guns. Nobody wants your guns. You know what? You can have your guns. Just don't fucking kill people needlessly with them. Like, you know, like it would. We have no problems with the guns. It's the fucking kooks that get them and want to use them because they can hold 150 rounds at a go and they can kill 80 people from 100 yards away. That's the kind of shit that doesn't need to exist. And I'm pretty confident our forefathers didn't even consider when they wrote in that amendment.
When it takes however long to change a fucking musket round, you know?
Yes. Yes.
What,
like,
have you seen that tweet that it's like, I think it's been tweeted. I'm sure it's gone in a lot of different ways, but it's like the protests of people holding those kind of assault rifles on government steps, protesting the shutdown, basically. You're like, we want to be able to go to fucking restaurants.
Yeah.
And it's like Trump's response to that about basically supporting it, his tweet about it. And then right next to like a tweet about what's going on in Minneapolis right now, where he's saying like thugs and all type, and it's like that's when the shooting starts, and it's like basically his it's so transparent.
And nobody calls it out, and nobody really,
or they do, but like the problem is too is I was saying something, or one of the many problems, I was saying something about just feeling like it's certain people misinformed. And then Brian was like, no, they're fucking racist.
Yeah.
Like, that's... Anyway, so I want to talk about a moment where I was racist. Or something, but it was... So I was trying to get a cello player in... I feel like this was 2006-ish. And I was trying to find string players to play with me in my music and be on the album. And... there's this one guy who had seen it wasn't Cable Access exactly, or maybe it was some sort of show like that I was on and played some songs. And so he reached out to me through MySpace at the time, and he was like, I really like your music, and I've come up with cello parts. And I was like, oh, great. And so I went and met with him a couple times, and we were trying to kind of sort something out. And I was 20, so it was like 26 or so, maybe 7, I don't know, but I was in college and getting to know the bride who'd already done a lot of work around issues of racism and oppression and all of that, and like in her graduate work. And she came from a neighboring small town so kind of had a similar background as me, but like she's already had, by the time she and I met, she was 30, and she'd done quite a lot of like actual just like the work. Like I feel like for so many years, like even especially when I was doing music, I would write about my personal struggles, but I don't know how much I truly worked on them, and for the last so many years where I haven't been doing music, that has been a lot of like just trying to work on stuff and like actually get better, feel better, and behave better, etc., instead of just singing about how I wish I could do that or whatever. Anyway, this is back around the time though where I'm just kind of very early on starting to, what am I even trying to say? Like a good example, I feel like, for me, that you knew like certain like words were bad, certain racist ideas were bad,
Sure.
I feel like even growing up in the small town where we did. But does that same small town, like the mascots are like... the Indians, and in Cleveland, the Indian, and that red-faced Chief Wahoo. But like for most of my life, not over half my life, up to this point, it never would have occurred to me that could be a bad thing.
Yeah.
Not once. But once I started to hear about how that is, it's that ouch thing. Like how it's not just like offensive because it's politically this or that. It's like using an entire like race or whatever as we define it culturally, race, like Indian, and like it's so okay to just like if you picture like Chief Wahoo as like a Sambo African American type thing, that would never fly.
Absolutely.
But so for some reason it's fine to do to American Indians. Like they're working on it, whatever, but people are dug in about it. Anyway, I'm just using it as an example to say that I never had any idea that would be racist and wrong and hurtful to people. And so we're around the point in time where I'm starting to like understand some of that. But like, it's the kind of thing that once you see, you can't unsee, and you start to see it in all these new places. And I was just starting to recognize the general underlying racism that I had from where I grew up, I guess, and still have. I just overheard the bride saying today, there's, I guess, some sort of cliche about the spiral staircase of these kinds of issues. And basically, you're just always kind of going up it. You never get to the top. You just realize what you don't know throughout the course of your entire life. But I was starting to realize enough to know that I had a lot of work that there was work to be done, I guess. There were things to overcome, attitudes to correct. And so I'm meeting with this guy, and he, oh man, I forgot about this part. He seized upon this lyric of mine that was, sorry, I hadn't thought about this part. So it's like, sorry, I should know this. Like a broken bone never set right. This is the lyric. Like a broken bone never set right. A broken heart lingers like an endless night. That was the lyric. But this guy was convinced that I didn't say lingers.
Oh.
And so he really like held me to it. He's like, no, I believe you're saying this. He was a black guy, a cello player who was a little bit older than me, but not much. And we had been getting along great and kind of making some progress. But I was like, no, I was just trying to wrap my head around like how he could think that, even just from the construction of it. It's like, no, I like the L. It's like the L's lingers like an endless night. He's like, no. So it's this, and so I was trying to.
Was he, and he was not okay with you using, obviously.
Oh no, of course not.
Like,
he was like calling me out on it. And it was like because he didn't. It wasn't a song that would have been available to him prior to us maybe like him maybe recording on the album. So I gave him like the whole album. So it's like this one visit was great. I came back. He's like, well, I do have an issue with this thing here. And so I think somewhere in that conversation, and I think like I'm probably there wearing this like Righteous Babe Records shirt I have of like I don't know if it's the social, it's like this, it's the fist, like you put it up like Black Power or whatever, but it's got like peace fingers.
Right.
I don't know. I guess I'm doing it for you. We're not recording video, but so I'm starting to like, no always use the term as like woke back then or anything, but I was starting to feel more that way. And I remember saying something to him where it's like acknowledging like that I'm sure I do have underlying racist ideas that I need to move through. And so I don't know if it was just that he was, but I never heard from him again. So I always thought for all these years that maybe my having said that the way that I said it, like to what I thought was a good thing to acknowledge that he was just taking as like confirmation of like, yeah, this guy's an avowedly open racist prick and I don't want anything to do with him. Or like he really thought that anyway, but so it's weird to like think. So that
first off, how does that make you racist? That's not you being racist. That was clearly a misunderstanding, though.
Oh, the lyric thing, absolutely.
The lyric thing was clearly a misunderstanding, and you trying to admit that I'm sure I have some undertones, that also is a misunderstanding. Like that wasn't you admitting that you were a racist and you were saying the N-word.
Right.
Ninja. I saw that there was a really great I watched this awesome AI video where this kid made an AI that wrote rap lyrics, and he fed in like there's some national hip hop database that has all the hip hop lyrics, like Wikipedia, typed out in them. And so he fed the entirety of that database into this AI for it to learn. And he got to a certain point in the video. It was really fascinating to watch like how the AI worked to put together these rap lyrics. Because because at first it's just generating gobbledygook on the screen, like no. And then after like 10 seconds, there's words. Like it learned in 10 seconds to go from gobbledygook to words. Right.
Whoa.
And like, and so, but ultimately the first time, it's hip hop. So that word is used, the N word is used a lot in hip hop. And the like video grinds to a halt, and he's like, this is where I need to like come in, because there's a particular word that, because of the content that we're trying to get the AI to generate, that this word is going to come up. So in the future on this video, where we will refer to that word as ninja. And so I just think that instead of saying N word, I like ninja.
Yeah, I've heard that before in a different source. I like it too. I guess I just wanted to share that just to say that, like, that's one experience that I've had where it's just like, this stuff is difficult. Like, you're going to fuck up and say bad things, but we can't not talk about it. Like,
yeah. I have a very similar story that also actually involves, by extension, the bride, that in this, so in that involves the same kind of, where you think by doing this that is helping me acknowledge and move beyond my own shortcomings and my own misconceptions of race and race issues in America. So obviously we know Dave and I have been making projects, we've been making, that's the first time I've referenced this being a show, and that's weird. So we've been making projects in forever, and I made WPLMR. Well, all of that prior all started with, I made 3, which I don't know where the third one is, but I made 3 mix CDs called WPLMR. And on them, I wanted, I don't know, I had this fascination that is still something that I like. Not a fascination, I just had this idea of like, and part of it is, how I love to learn about things. Everyone I knew my entire life, the town we grew up in, were all just like me. They all had like the same similar culture and history, and like it was all very familiar. And so the idea of having an African American or any other differing race as not just an acquaintance, but a literal counterpart, that I could have these kind of intimate conversations like I have with you, right? Like, but from a completely different culture and background than myself, so that I could learn. I want to learn about that culture and that background and those things that was just not available to me in the town that we were living. Like, I had just gotten divorced and moved back to that town. I just graduated from college. So there was no diversity in my life, and I wanted to make these mix CDs, and I wanted to have this show. And I thought, what a great, one of the things that at the time that was, I really liked the Howard Stern show, because it had evolved by that point, he was on Sirius XM, right? And the show had evolved to this. It wasn't shock jock radio anymore. That still happened, right? Like, he still did that kind of stuff, but really it was just his buddies. They just, like, he had collected this awesome group of friends that he like ushered into fame with him.
Yeah, like Fred and Robin.
Yeah,
and all
Fred
that.
and Robin, and Robin was his co-host, and she was this amazing African-American, powerful woman who was his co-host, right? And I was like, I need a African-American co-host. And so I created a character, which is like, that's like it's audio blackface. It's literally audio blackface. Like,
I had never heard that. You might have made up that.
I think I did make it up. And it's just like, and I remember like when those came out, like, and I distributed them amongst our friend group, and they were getting really, that's what motivated me to do WPLMR. Jerome didn't make it to that podcast version of WPLMR because of the bride, because through the bride talking to you about how that's it probably inappropriate, and getting by extension the kind of haphazard Dave response to that, like it really made me at first I was
very indirect, I'm sure.
Yeah, and yeah. It was like, you know, well, maybe this new girlfriend, you know, because you guys were new, like newly dating, right? Yeah. Like this new girlfriend of mine was maybe pointing out that maybe that's not the most, like, I know your motivation behind it, but maybe it's not the most like racially just way to do that, you know. And at first I was really indignant, you know, like really like, well, that I'm not racist at all. That's the whole point of it, is like I would have an African American on that show, but I don't know any African Americans, you know, but I want diversity in my show. Well, that doesn't give me the right to be that. It's not any more diverse if I'm the one trying to provide that diversity through a voice or a character, you know. Yeah. So, but again, it's through that. It's one of those things where it's like you don't even think of it as being racism until somebody else who really understands that points it out to you. So maybe that's the advice, is don't, like, find those people like the bride, find the people that do understand it, latch onto them, ask questions again, find somebody else and then ask them the same questions and get their answer and synthesize the two. Yeah. Or use their answers as a basis for you to draw your own conclusions about it, your own opinions and your own perspectives, and then support those and fight for them. But don't lock them away. Keep them open and keep them like in a place that they can grow and live and change as they need to, because race relations in America right now are different than they were 5 years ago. And 5 years ago, they were different than they were 60 years ago. So just know that, like, just because what's okay today might not be okay tomorrow, and vice versa, you know. Be open to that change and be a part of it, and impetus for that change in the right direction, in the positive stuff. I don't know. So you want to talk about race? That sounds like a good starting.
Yeah, that's something I want to, because I can't still to this day discuss it very well. I mean, honestly, I have trouble discussing anything that is uncomfortable. I'm just not sure I just have yet to cultivate that skill, honestly. It's very hard for me. I'm just looking for this one thing because I had an opportunity to, I went and did this, like, I think it's called the Peace Project. Yeah. So this dude does something called A Piece of My Mind, and he goes around to different places and he asks people like to share like one sentence about peace, and he pairs it with these like beautiful black and white photography. And so he came near where he came where I worked. I'll just tell you, and I guess cut it out or whatever, but and he was like right by where I was.
He came to where I worked because I know that's where you work, and then you still don't have to beep it out.
Oh, wait, what?
You didn't have to say. You just say he came to my job.
Oh, I know you know. Yeah, so stupid. Yeah. I don't know. I get so uncomfortable.
I know. Yeah.
I don't know if I knew. It's like because I had done a video for the MLK program. We was celebrating, I think it's like 50th anniversary, and we ended up doing this kind of roundtable discussion. Anyway, I was just involved in it, and because of I made that project, we were actually kind of telling this story of when during the civil rights movement, the students on campus like overtook the administration building. They like occupied it and made the administration sort of change their policies around certain things. I'm sure I'm glossing over that terribly and getting some stuff wrong, but so we ended up kind of talking about the anniversary of that, which led to all these, like, you know, led to things like having the Martin Luther King Jr. program, or the African American Studies Department, or American Indian Studies Department, and the Chicano Studies Department, all this stuff. Anyway, So my client, I guess that were from that project, told me about this and invited like people from the campus community to come and participate. And I was like, oh, okay. So I showed up, and the prompt for this stop on this guy's tour was so it's what does he say? I'm looking at Twitter here. It's at a piece of my mind one, and it's like peace spelled like peace, man. And it said it's a public art project that uses story and photography to bridge divides. And so I didn't know what the prompt would be, but the prompt I was given was, in 25 words or less, what is the unique opportunity / challenge of talking about race at this moment in history? It's weird. I haven't thought about this till about 3 minutes ago. But so I wrote down, today I feel it's important to listen, learn, own my impact, admit when I'm wrong, and have hurt someone, and commit to doing better. Really short. And I posted that on social media, and I remember this. This is the part I think about more often, unfortunately, is because of this, like music colleague or whatever said something like, really shallow comment, but you look handsome in the picture, and it really bummed me out, because I was like, I know that. Because there's the whole thing about virtue signaling and stuff. But if you look at, I said it's just important to listen, to learn, to own my impact, and admit when I'm wrong, and commit to doing better. Like, that's a simple sentence, but I will spend my whole life trying to live up to that.
Yeah.
And that's one of the hardest things about this, because I remember, and it could be any number of people. And so, like, in this case, like, the bride is also white like me. And so when we were first like getting seriously involved, I remember something coming up. Like, we were about to go out. I think Moto was there in my apartment in Kent, and something about racism came up. And I don't remember anything about it other than the fact, like, I literally went to the dictionary and showed it to her and was arguing with her about the definition of it. Like, I knew correctly and she didn't. And I don't even remember the distinction. I think it had something to do with power, actually. But anyway, it's what am I saying? Oh, but so I think one of the biggest things I saw in that moment, like, I was very defensive. And I think this goes well beyond race or anything. And it's something that is hard for me to implement in my life in general, is this whole listen and admit when I'm wrong. Like, and I started to, so I've been working on that much more consciously in a broad blanketed way of just like listening to listen and not to defend myself or something like that. And once I started to become aware of that, it's like, it happens a lot where I'm just like arguing that I'm not wrong. Like, I don't think of it like that.
Right.
But I don't know. It's just this powerful thing, I feel like, because that's the whole thing. It's like, the minute someone does that, suddenly there is no argument, you know? The argument is over because you don't disagree anymore. Like, oh shit, I'm wrong. And I don't know. So it's, and then from there, like, that's suddenly there's the opportunity for things to be different. And I guess, I don't know. I don't even know what I'm saying.
That bums me out but I think, like, your colleague's comment, how unhelpful and how unnecessary.
Yeah, and it's just so much of like, and I'm sure she didn't give it a second thought, you know. And that's so much of like the social media landscape is, and I'm hyper aware of it myself. And it's just like everything we do, there is like a performative thing, and it really made me question, why did that bother me? And I was like, and I was trying to own certain things, because I was like, yeah, I did post that picture because I felt handsome in that picture. That was part of what I was looking for. She gave me 50% of what I was after, I think, by posting that, because I wanted people to say, you look handsome and you're a thoughtful, sensitive guy or whatever. And she didn't say one of those things. And so I was crushed. And I was like, but it's so weird because it's like, I don't know why she did it, of course. But anyway, so part of it is she's that sort of virtue signaling, right? Where she's like, cute thing, white guy, whatever to say. Anyway, I don't know. I guess I shared these examples knowingly, like recorded or whatever, just it's hard to know like what's helpful to hear like at a certain moment for anyone. And I guess it's helpful for me to be reminded, like I'd forgotten parts of these stories. One of the things that I found really helpful, like about recording our candid conversations and sharing them and stuff, and especially me editing them, is like I'm confronted with myself in a way that most people aren't. You know, you don't usually hear like yourself droning on for like 4 hours about things. And so
that could be why I don't listen to our episodes. Like I
don't think I would listen if I didn't have to edit. Certainly not on any kind of a regular basis.
Yeah, but I think that confrontation of self is might be one of the reasons why I have such a hard time listening to our episodes.
Oh yeah, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Adage, like people like I hate to hear my own voice or whatever. Like most people feel that way.
But that to me is shallow. Like, oh, I don't like the sound of my own voice, because I've done so many projects and have heard myself now so many times. That isn't even off-putting to me. It doesn't even sound different now. Yeah. I'm sure. Like, do you feel the same way? Like,
I'm so used to hear. I mean, I am the main subject of most of my own creative endeavors, and so it's very familiar to me.
Yeah. So I mean, it doesn't even throw me off anymore. Now I've made so many recorded things that I've seen and heard that piece doesn't bother me, but especially the last episode,
our day drinking episode.
Yeah, the revenge episode. Like, there's no way I could even find anything to enjoy listening about myself in either of those episodes.
You know what I mean? Makes sense. Like, yeah.
So
I've encountered that. I mean, I can relate is what I mean.
Yeah.
About myself so often in this show.
So yeah, I can totally I can totally respect that confrontation of self. I'm sorry I cut you off.
Oh, it's okay. I don't know that I really realized it as such or think about it all the time. I just looking at like for instance, this whole like quarantine and stuff, I am very fortunately, coincidentally, had just been in a place where over so many years I developed healthier habits. And so I haven't, so I've just been like karate the garage more or walking more, and not necessarily like, it didn't intensify bad habits for me because I'm sure maybe some. Anyway, I just mean, that's just like lucky. But why I bring up the show and stuff is because I feel like it has been super instrumental in me finding my way to some better practices because of like both us talking about it and aspiring to it. But me, it's a weird way in which I've like held account to myself or just reminded of like, hey man, remember you said you wanted this thing, and like here's all of these times you said you wanted this, but you didn't actually do it. And certain things like I didn't really want, other things I kind of did. And that's what I mean. It helped me to change because I like hear things and just like, oh, I just fundamentally don't want that. And so I don't know, but it all feels like I'm trying to say it like it's virtuous or something. It's really not. It's just like a byproduct. I've been thinking the last couple of minutes about like the last time Pumps was on the show, and he was talking about his past self in some way. He's like, I change all the, I don't remember what he said. I'm paraphrasing. He's like, I change all the time. He's like, I'm embarrassed about things I said last week.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not sure what I'm getting at with any of this, but
I don't think we need anything.
No,
I don't think there needs to be. It's just like, it's the greater world right now. This show has always been about us, not just us connecting, but us trying to be better friends, better people through the support of each other, right?
Yeah.
And
yeah,
some of us have made, you've made great strides. I've made some strides, and I think that the show has been effective in some ways on that. And what's happening in the world right now is a great illustration of why we need it, why we need to keep doing that, and we should keep doing that every day, and we should, and not stagnate, and not be comfortable. I hate fucking comfort, and because it just like, comfort is a warm blanket that will swallow you alive if you let it, and you'll never get out of it. Like, be a little uncomfortable sometimes and grow, and I think what's happening in this world, everything right now, for two people that essentially have been practicing this with this reflection, this kind of intense reflection. We say dude therapy like it's just like a subtitle for the show, but it's a good moniker, like I think there is some therapy, some on some level that happens here in this show, right? And we're just seeing right now, we're seeing that it's reaffirming yes, we still have work to do on ourselves, and then let that work impact beyond ourselves. Ash and I watched Groundhog Day last night.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So because it feels like Groundhog Day. This right. And she's like, when that joke first happened, she's like, I hate that fucking movie. I'm like, what are you talking about? That is one of Bill Murray's like best performances. It's such a perfect dark comedy. It's because it's a really colorful, happy, bright comedy on the surface. But when you really think of the implications of it, that's what makes it dark. And she's like, I don't know. Somebody told me how great it was, and then I just don't know if I was in the wrong mood when I saw it or whatever, but I just hated it. And I've always had that experience about it. But because it's been this like joke that has come up regularly since quarantine, not just from me or anyone else, but just like it just is in the periphery. It makes sense. Like, oh, this feels like Groundhog's Day, or, oh, we watch Groundhog's Day. Like, we heard friends saying that, like, because we're living Groundhog Day. And so she finally was like, I think I need to give that movie another try. And so we were talking about it. I, of course, fell asleep in the last like hour or so. But she finished it all the way through. And so we were talking about it today. And there's articles and videos that break this all down much more eloquently than I'm about to do it. But when you really look at the philosophy of that movie, it's really, really, really smart. Because like, if you watch his character and think of when he realizes very quickly the what he starts to perceive, and that changes, but initially he starts to perceive what he has as a potential gift to reap rewards with.
Oh, yeah.
And because the first thing he does is sleep with a woman. He uses it to his advantage to sleep with a woman, and then he uses it to his advantage to sleep with another woman, and then another one, and another one. And what you don't see in between all those different women is that the number of days that he's spending just to even get to that point where he's sleeping with those women, right? And so, but the first woman he sleeps with, that he uses this situation to seduce, he calls her by Andy McDowell's character's name, like when they're finally about to have sex the first time, right? And and so then, like, even when he was a shitty person, he still had feelings for Andy McDowell, and that's really what his ultimate goal is, because she's the next one, and then that he tries to work on, and that falls apart. Like, it ends with that slap montage, and that's
that
like
I kind of remember, yeah.
And that slap montage is one of the few times where you see the actual diligence this would take. Like, where because every day he's getting further on that date with her, and then he takes the notes for the next day, right?
Yeah.
And that slap montage, it kind of all just falls apart. And every one of those slaps is a different day of hours of work of him getting to that point, to that slap. And it's one of the few times in the movie that you get a true sense of the effort for him to do something like that would take, right? And So that falls apart with Andy McDowell, and that montage ends with him walking away, and he sees ice sculptures, and that starts to it leads to, he robs the bank. He does, like, so then he goes from, he's like, so in the first stage, he's just like self-fulfilling. He's using this to like better himself, like better his situation, not himself, just his situation, like money, sex, food, drugs, crime, to get that like stimulus high, and all of that. And that ultimately he realizes that's not going to fulfill me. I need more than that. So instead of improving my situation through tangible things, maybe I can improve myself through things. And that's where he does and mind you, all of these things are usually surrounded with bouts of depression, like days of depression.
Yeah.
There's the suicide montage and like all
Which is
that.
a weird
right?
thing to say, but yeah, obviously like that's in this movie. It's the only movie you can have a suicide montage. Well, that and The Stand, I guess. Yeah, that's true. But so he goes through that stage where he's improving self, right? He learns how to wood carve and do ice sculpture. He learns piano. He teaches himself all of these skills that maybe he will find fulfillment through that betterment of self. And then when that stops being fulfilling, he moves on to betterment of the world outside of himself, where he like tries to save the homeless man, right? Like he spends and no matter what he does, that homeless man dies. He tries to like change the tire. He does like all these different things. And it's not until he realizes I can't just focus on making any one of these things better at a time. I have to try to do all of it together at the same time. I need to improve my status, my situation. I need to improve myself. I need to improve my surroundings. And I, as this one person, can have an impact on this entire microcosm that's at my fingertips. If I really put forth that effort that I was focusing on one thing, but do it on all of them together. And so then he does that, and that's what breaks the cycle and gets him what he wants. Like he gets Andy McDowell at the end of that and gets to wake up in tomorrow finally when he pieces that together. And I just think that we have potential, but we're living in Groundhog Day. Like we can realize, like we need to do all. Interesting. You know what I mean? Like we can. Yeah, we can use this time to our advantage. That's what I was kind of thinking about before. I love that idea, like that out of the pandemic comes some prosperity somehow on the other side of it.
Healing.
Yeah, healing. And this documentary thing I'm working on, like the idea is that art is one of the main ways that we heal as a species. So it's look at the healing you found, or at least the ideas that in Groundhog Day. I mean, I've been finding, as I just like grasp at straws, trying to find the things that work. Like I love this idea that you and Ash are going to come up with a program together that's born out of your unique and respective desires that you can pursue. Like, so one of the things that makes me think of is because in trying to find, like, the whole thing with exercise and all this stuff, like I just hate all these kinds of different forms of exercise. It took me years to just be like, well, what do you like? And it's like, oh, I guess I like walking around. That's not too taxing, and I get to think and all this. And then it's like, I don't remember what I think, well, obviously it was the show and the comment karate in the garage that sort of led to some of that. But it was just like, I'd like to be able to move my body. And so all of like any kind of like health that came from that was all secondary to just like finding the things that I wanted to do about it. Anyway, so it reminds me of the Bruce Lee thing. So like even the fact that I look to Bruce Lee as a teacher or whatever, these ideas that I can utilize, sounds kind of silly, but it's like helpful to me. And so I think of that thing of like absorb what is useful, discard what is useless, and add what is essentially your own. I mean, like we're talking about a philosopher, but also like a martial arts guy. But who cares? Like if that helps me do a
Exactly.
little better. I've just come to like really embrace that kind of idea of like taking inspiration where I can find it, uh, and taking what I can from it to find just like a little bit more peace. And but there's this, I don't remember the quote at all. I just remember this idea that everything is in relation to. And then so I think that's a Bruce Lee idea, but it's probably many others. But it's this whole idea. I heard then elsewhere that something that resonated about that quite a while ago, but I've been thinking about it a lot more recently, and thinking about it today when I was, you and I were both trying to be sensitive to each other and like whether or not we felt like we should get on mic and all this. And I just kept thinking of like, I have to do something in relation to someone else, like to someone who can help me get out of my own head. Or like, it's easy to be this is the idea. It's like, it's easy to be a good person when you don't have to interact with anyone, because there's nothing to come up against, your thoughts are not challenged, or you don't realize, or whatever. I don't know, but it's like, you learn, I think you actually, it's like that thing they say, you want to be a better tennis player, you got to play against someone better than you, or, anyway. Right. So I think for me, I definitely, outside of all of this, have a tendency to isolate. And there's a comfort in that warm blanket of just like, I'm not confronted by the outside world. I can just have good thoughts and find things that make me happy and maybe grow, you think, but like, if you're not actually practicing anything, then anyway. So I think that is one of the things that is very useful about the opportunity that we've made and cultivated to talk to each other like this, is, for me at least, getting me out of like, I am, to be in relation, as opposed to just like thinking my thoughts, or I don't know what I'm saying. I'm glad we're doing this, I think, is what I'm saying. I'm glad
we're doing it too. I really am.
I don't know if I feel like I don't know if I feel better about it, but I just feel good to talk about it with you nonetheless.
Yeah, I just feel good to talk to you and really get out of. You're right. It is good to interact with somebody. I mean, Ash and I have been really doing well and pretty well. So
that's great.
But it is nice to be to talk to somebody different. We had company over last week. We had a couple of friends over, and we sat socially distanced on our porch and just kind of shot the shit. And
that's nice.
That was really nice. And so, yeah, but I know you have to pee. I hear Ash rolling around in the kitchen. We're probably getting close to dinner time, or at least something for you two. So do you have enough bladder time to like do a sign off, and then we can just?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
You want to do that?
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
yeah,
I don't really have much anything else, and
yeah, I think that's a good idea. I was sort of leaning that way too.
Yeah. So, I don't know. Hopefully, Long Walker's next episode, we might be back on some kind of similar track. Let's talk something
like
Stephen
Bond
King.
Over something.
Yeah,
I think that's been easy. I don't know. I feel like the last so many, we did the Tiger King or whatever, but it is nice to have something we can have shared and both seen, right? Kind of.
Yeah. I still have that heavyweights episode that we can talk about.
Oh yeah. I have notes on that still, and I can remember it.
I still want to try to. I just haven't. I had a major breakthrough on Cannibalized, and I'm trying to get something on paper for that, so that I can share that. So maybe we can talk about that. I don't know. Stephen King, are you listening to anything book-wise right now?
Not at all. I've really been thinking about, but now I'm going to read this race book, I think. But I was going to get his short story collection, like through our local bookstore.
If It Bleeds?
Is that the newest one? That sounds right. Yeah, it's like a new story. I think it's short story collection.
You know who I'm pretty confident. Hang on. Let me look.
I clicked it. I don't know why. I clicked the thing myself, and I was like, I don't even know what I'm looking for. So I instinctively thought I should be looking something up.
So If It Bleeds is the newest collection of short stories by Stephen King, right? Steven Weber reads one of the short stories on there.
Oh,
Who is
really?
who is one of our
Yeah.
favorite Stephen King narrators. He
The It
does
narrator.
the current version of It, who is amazing. So
Oh, that's fun.
looks like Bill Patton reads one of the stories too.
Oh,
Or
good.
Will Patton, I mean, sorry.
Yeah, who read
And
like Doctor Sleep and probably other
the
stuff.
Doctor Sleep trilogy for sure. I think he read something else. I heard they're adapting what's the Frankenstein story that I told you about that's a newer one?
Oh, I'm not sure. I've forgotten about
It's
that.
really
Where you
good.
said it's like his take of that.
Yeah. But they're making that into either a limited series or something. So that I meant to mention to you that might be a good one to start just so that
Oh,
you
cool.
have it.
Oh, you know what I did see is they have the series of Creep Show that is a Shudder series, I believe, and then they showed some on AMC, and I just watched the first one, and it was fun. It was like it was stories, at least one story from Night Shift. It was Gray Matter from Night Shift,
Oh,
and
nice.
it's current, but it's definitely made to like live in the world of like the Creep Show movie.
Yeah.
Adrian Barbeau was in it, so like
Wow.
in the segment. I haven't watched any other, but it was just fun to see that. I think I will. I've been thinking about doing it, and I just will because they're short stories or whatever. But I think I'll order that If It Bleeds, It Leads from our local place. I can't remember. They've got some sort of arrangement where you can get stuff.
If it bleeds, it leads. That is that the whole title? I just thought it's If It Bleeds.
Oh, If It Bleeds. Sorry, I'm sorry. Yeah, If It Bleeds.
Yeah. If It Bleeds. Yeah.
I'm just.
Oh, jeez, I thought I was off. No. Yeah. So. Yeah, maybe I could try to find that, and we can talk about that too.
Yeah, no pressure though. I mean, it's such a fucked up time for so many reasons, and I don't mind. I mean, I think about some of our earliest episodes and whatnot, and we hadn't really got onto that idea of let's try to watch or talk about this thing for next time, and so I think if something like that naturally comes about, great. But I'm reminded that it's nice to hop on and chat even if there's no structure to it.
Maybe we can talk to Twinkie tweeted out that or text us that, and I know Hulu does it now too, but there's like a group watch thing that you can do where like if you're not in the same space, but it synchronizes, like you all kind of like watch together something.
That's right.
Maybe we can try to talk to the guys, or maybe try to do a group, something like that. That would be fun.
Absolutely.
And then we can comment on that. I know you have to pee.
I'm okay. I'm okay.
So this has been something that I've been rolling around too, is like, I thought like maybe a hiatus would be good for me, just in the sense that I know that you're going to say it's not a big deal and it's fine, but it's really, to me, it's, at least it's not. But I feel like I really have dropped the ball on the show. Like I just I'm not contributing a lot. I don't really bring anything to the table when I come to talk. I just, and I haven't followed through with the web page, or I haven't followed through with anything that I said I would do for the show. I just kind of show up here. And then last time I was just like a drunk mess. Right. And what fucking fun is that? So, and I at least am cognizant of it, even if you're humble enough and kind enough to not like say anything about that. Right. And I'm cognizant enough about it. And so then it gets to be like, when we come onto the show, like it feels like this like gut wrench for me, because I still haven't produced anything. I'm just all talk, so maybe a hiatus would be like a kick in the pants to like you, so that I don't take it for granted like I have been, or at least feel like I have been, if I'm not really. But so that would give me time to, like, if you want it back, you got to deliver then, because you need something to come back with,
Yeah, or you could think about it. I mean, obviously you got to do what feels right to you. And for me, I have to have like barometers to help me. Like when I asked to do the monthly thing, I was like, well, I was feeling the stress. And so I was like, well, how can I readjust this to make sure I can hang on to the thing that makes me feel good and try to create some space otherwise? I guess what I'm getting at with that is like, maybe some of those things, if you don't actually want to do them, you could let them go so that they don't bother you.
Yeah.
You could either like embrace and do, or perhaps, because I'm not up nights thinking like, when's he gonna do this, that, or the
I
other.
I know.
But if it bothers you, it bothers you, and I don't want
Right.
that either.
Right. Yeah, I know. I it's just something to think about. But let's just play it all by ear, and let's just see. I like the like group watch thing idea.
Yeah,
I would love to have an episode where we're just like we're a commentary for something somebody could watch on something,
What about Spaceballs?
Oh man, that would be fantastic. If that. So right now that is only available via Stars.
Okay.
Let's just play the next 30 days by ear and see how it goes. Let's do a sign off and then you can go pee.
Okay.
We'll get out
yeah,
of here.
that sounds fun. To possibly do that, if especially because it tags up on that old thing. But it would just be fun to have a virtual hangout. I mean, there has so much of this has sucked, but there have been like kind of fun ways. Like I'm about to do a series of recordings, like with the guy who played drums for me reached out because I'd done a few like quarantine concerts. Anyways, a long story sort of, but he was like, you should do record something to a click track, and then I can record a video, and your brother can record one. And I was like, oh, I never thought of that. It could be that thing where you got the quadrants we're all used to seeing, and then I thought, oh, it'd be great if I could do like some songs with if Tara, the cellist, would be involved, could be into it, and I hadn't spoken to her or whatever in like years, but I reached out to her. I was like, hey, how's it going? So anyway, so now we're like gonna kind of do this song here or there or whatever, but the main part of it is like, oh, we're like, I'm in contact with these people and I'm kind of get to do and put my energy into something kind of fun. And
you're making public music again, buddy.
Yeah, that was really nice. But like, leave it to me. So the first thing actually was an offer through my job to do it at one of those meetings I hate.
Yeah.
And it was so funny because I was like, well, I got to change my attitude about this a little bit because this opportunity. And then anyway, but I did I did the thing. It was really nice. And I was consumed with like, I want to have a way to share this after in case it's any good. And it ended up being fine. And I got a surprise. I'm just so used to like nobody really interacting with, or very few people interacting with things put out, and especially around music, that had just not been a thing that would get much traction. So I did post it, and I sent it to my email list and stuff, but I got like I got a surprising amount of like engagement, and it was really gratifying. One of the fun ones was, I heard from Joanna at WCTV. She was like, this is so great. And we had just a nice back and forth with email about just catching up a little bit. But then like later in the week, she was like, can we maybe show this on WCTV? Because they have this like streaming component. I was like, nothing would please me more. And so like I got her the file or something. And so it's like also on WCTV.
Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah. Oh, man.
But again, just like this sort of night, like I couldn't have planned that. I couldn't have contrived that. And just like you were talking about with that YouTube guy, I could see that in a lot of my own online activities and surrounding music, especially. It's like I could just feel it, and so I would pull back from the things that made me feel icky or felt like, and then before I knew it, I just wasn't doing any because that was all there was. So anyway, it was this like nice to be able to do that and share it, and then to have people say, hey, good job or whatever. Or it was nice to just be I picked songs that felt useful in the moment, sort of somehow. Like it would feel silly to sing certain songs now because it just didn't resonate with me. So I was kind of in this like quarantine resilient mindset. And anyway, it was fun. I did. I sang Maytime, which is a song that I wrote basically about cabin kids, very literally about cabin kids and that impact in my life. And the reason I did that was honestly because the opportunity to sing. I was invited in particular to sing my songs, which was really wild or unexpected because there have been plenty of times in my life where someone's like, can you come sing covers at this thing or sing music, and they don't know what my music is or how inappropriate it would be. And anyways, so nice to be like asked to contribute something that comes from me like that. Anyway, but when I was trying to think about what songs to play, one of the things I kept thinking about was like, I I don't like these meetings because I'm uncomfortable in groups. I don't know how to, the whole thing makes me anxious. And I started to think so much about first coming out to the cabin. One of the main reasons that I did bring guitars and stuff is because I don't know if it's correct to call it social anxiety or whatever. It's just like, it gave me something to do. It gave me a way to interact. And I was realizing that was kind of what I was doing in this this kind of space with my colleagues. It's like I've suddenly felt a little bit more at ease because I had something to contribute to this thing I didn't usually feel comfortable in. And it made me think about that song and about that time. But anyway, it was all really nice and it felt right. You know, like we were saying, like, everything feels wrong right now. This was before the horrible thing with George Floyd, and it was just about the pandemic. But then, so yeah, I published that and all these nice things. And then like people are, some like people I didn't know from like Rittman's like, we need you now singing music. I was like, it was a weird thing that one of those social media things, was awesome. About them and not me.
Yeah.
Like completely, like they were trying to draw attention to something, whatever. But so it was all very cool. And then, but my mind went someplace terrible with that goodness. It was just like, oh, okay, they want me to do more, but I'm gonna do it. Nobody's gonna watch it. It's gonna be, and like this whole negative train of associations that I literally caught myself. I'm like, whoa, what is this about? Yeah. And then I had to think, like, okay, do you want to do any more? And if so, what does that look like? And so I kind of I was like, oh, I do. I would like to do this little thing. And so I posted another short concert. But it was a little bit of that was all still there. Like, it did get a lot less oh my God. I just realized I posted it last weekend. And I think I just learned a little bit from that. It's like, don't do that if you want people. Anyway, but then the second video came out on YouTube the day the George Floyd thing happened, where it's just like everything became irrelevant. Anyway, what am I talking about? But it was like, yeah, it was not really nice to be able to like do it, that, and to be motivated to play music, right, and to be able to connect with people through it for the first time in like almost 5 years. But now, yeah, so it's weird. It's like I don't think any of that would happen under normal circumstances. And this thing about being able to collaborate with other musicians and just the excuse to like be in contact with them, and because it is the same as it's always been with me, like, got to make a show. And so, yeah, so now I get to kind of talk to those people. So I love this. All this is to say, I love the idea of this, of getting together for the Spaceballs commentary. Even if it's like, I was really starting to lean towards like, let's just all get together and watch something like this and not record at all. Right. But the Spaceballs thing is kind of a little irresistible, especially since the existing commentary is a thing that, we talked about, or that bothers you because it's about sandwiches, eating instead of the Mel Brooks thing.
Yeah,
we could correct
that.
He
totally. Have you listened to the commentary?
No, but I haven't, because I was like, what's really funny is like, there's a site online where you can download commentaries that I found, not all commentaries, but a certain host of them. Yeah, and I'm looking at a bunch of them I downloaded. This is back. I've been working on getting this archive for like the last maybe so many months. This is April 15th. I downloaded a bunch. It's like Ed Wood, Lethal Weapon 4, Lethal Weapon 3, this is the order, Spaceballs, 1987. So it's like it's staring me right in the face in this moment. And I'm keep thinking about it. I think I've heard it, but I would not seek it out because... Anyway.
So I listened to that back in 2000. Right? Like, so I know nothing about film now, and I knew even less then. And so like and what was even more dangerous was I thought I knew something about film back then. And so like I was just butting into this, like, well, Dave watches commentaries all the time. That's a big thing of his. Like, if you want to know film, like, you should watch commentaries too. And so, like, well, you love Spaceballs, and like they had put out a really good edition of Spaceballs that had a commentary with Mel Brooks, and he didn't bring anybody from the like. not any of the actors. Like,
Mhm.
I'm sure he brought like his producers and like stuff like that's who these people are. They're the people that he's worked with for 40 years, probably up to that point. And they literally just talk about like, I just remember the sandwich thing and
Yeah.
like them talking like they're just a bunch of old men talking about their ailments and the food that they eat. Like that's that's what I felt like the conversation was. I'm probably grossly misrepresenting it, but I'm curious now, like if you listen to it, like what you would hear, you know, like because I even to this day, and I love film discussion and film theory. I still can't fucking listen to a commentary. It is
That
not
ruined it for you?
engaging. No. It's not that necessarily that this is me as an adult looking back in hindsight in my younger naive self. Maybe it wasn't what they were talking about, but just that commentaries weren't my thing.
Oh, and some are not engaging and others are like super entertaining. My favorites back then especially were, and still now, were like the Kevin Smith commentaries. It was like his podcast before podcasts.
And Boogie Nights, I remember the Boogie Nights commentaries.
That's
really
one of the
good.
ones I downloaded. I mean, I downloaded just like dozens and dozens from this site to be able, because I realized like I could just kind of put them on and listen as they would a podcast. And I haven't listened to a lot of them that way yet, but I can. But there's tons that are just not good. Like I remember the one a DVD came out for Braveheart, you know, I don't remember what year because it wasn't 95 or when the film came out, but it's just like so uninteresting. I was just so disappointed in it in that way. There was a commentary for Nosferatu, the 1920s film, that I don't know if I wrote the letter or if I just intended to write. I was so infuriated by it because it was dry or something. I couldn't stand the halted way in which the guy spoke. I almost sent a letter of complaint.
Oh man.
And then that just, and even like a couple years down the line, I think that guy was like on camera in one of the like featurettes for Universal Monsters or something. Like, oh, like that's that guy. And I saw him, I was like, oh, he's all right. And then I listened to the commentary again, was more maybe interested in the content and not the delivery, or not, I didn't have that expectation that it was going to be a certain thing. Right. And I still remember that though. I was like, fuck this thing. Like I want to write a letter saying how angry I am.
But that's a great illustration of like, you're the type of person that you care so much about commentary. They are a meaningful thing to you that you were willing to write a letter of complaint
at that age.
Whereas
I guess,
I'm just like, no, I can't. Even Fight Club has some amazing from a opportunity standpoint. There are 3 really good commentaries on that film. There's just like the David Fincher one, then there's the one with Fincher and the actors, and then there's one and then there's one with the author Chuck Palahniuk and the producer. I think like they're really fucking good. And I remember listening to the Chuck Palahniuk one and thinking like, this guy's a fucking tool. Like I don't know if it's like too much into the like, I don't know if it's just too much like seeing how the sausage is made for me or what, but it's just not my thing. And I think like that's the point maybe I'm trying to drive home is like, you just get to a point where you're just like, yeah, that's not my thing, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah,
you know,
it doesn't have, I'm kind of that way about TV. Like I do like it, and maybe it's, I don't know. I think with TV, I tend to really not want to know much about that. Because I love to just sort of stay in the world of that show and just have those people be the characters and not to pull back the curtain. Where for some reason with movies, I'm more interested in that other stuff. But that's just like a thing. It's not like a universal thing, never ever. But by and large, I'm just like, that's all right. Yeah, not everything's for everyone. Doesn't have to be, right? But
yeah, I guess.
But anyway, I love this idea of us all kind of watching something together, and whether it's that or something else, we should do it whenever it feels fun.
I also want to get Twinkie on for a Fury Road episode because it's like
Oh yeah.
they just had the 5-year was it the 5-year anniversary for Fury Road?
I'm not
and
sure. I do own that,
I
but I actually only ever saw it in the theater, and I think of it very fondly.
yeah,
but
I'm the same way.
He watches it all the time, which I find so fascinating.
Well, part of the reason is the TVs that I had owned up to a certain point could not handle the colors in that film. Like the red is a big problem, and that movie has a lot of red tones in it, and you could see in the colors would be the edges of the colors would be pixelated. I'm interested to watch it on the TV I have now because it's capable of such a better picture that I'm sure it would look better now. So, but I would love to have him on for a Fury Road or even a Mad Max like full discussion.
Oh yeah, just talk about all of them. Yeah,
George Miller, talk his like filmmaking, and then talk Mad Max.
Got to get Witches of Eastwick in there.
Oh, I fucking love that movie. Like I love Witches of
that
Eastwick.
Coming from the same guy, and I think that was like a big thing for him, where he was just like after that moved away from trying to work with.
Yeah,
I'm making that up. I don't know. I love this idea. Both of those things sound really fun.
Yeah,
well. Yeah, let's see like how the spirit moves. I want to be sure to like if you're feeling that like to have some space or whatever would be good. That's great. I'm really just kind of in a place where I just value this thing, but however it works out, I just don't want you to feel any kind of pressure of any kind.
I know, and I appreciate that. I just don't want that. I don't ever want to be in a position where you or I feel like I take advantage of that understanding of yours. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely appreciate that sentiment.
Yeah. So, yeah. And I, up to this point, I feel like I have not, but I feel like it's wearing on me like I might be. So I need to shape up or ship out, like, and that's okay if that's what it is. Like, WPLMR didn't last forever, and Palmer's Picks didn't last forever, and the lesson to take is that you just keep in communication with your friends, right?
Yes.
Like that's really like the lesson from it. There doesn't need, even though it's an easy way to get FaceTime with Dave is to make a show. You don't have to make a show.
That's
for Dave
very
to be
true.
Your friend. Right, like
that's true. That's probably important for me to hear as well.
Yeah. So you don't have to be in a documentary to be friends with Dave, and
doesn't hurt, but
it doesn't hurt. Sure doesn't. Maybe 2 or 3 of them, if depending.
Oh my god,
yeah.
That's true. We could always just try to, people have what Palmer's Picks kind of came out of a regular poker night, right? We could always come up with something like that is a ritual without any kind of takeaway other than the experience itself. I'd be very open to that.
Absolutely. So I thought of a bunch of ways of a bunch of different things, and just trying to think of how we would want to do that. So yeah, I think it'll be good.
Cool.
For sure.
Cool.
But well, let's get off of here. I think Ash has dinner done.
Yeah. So we ended up going for a long time.
We did. We shocker, right? For 2 people that really weren't really feeling it but wanted it, and story of my life. That was the story of my life right there. 2 people that were feeling it but didn't want it.
I'm not even sure I track. That's interesting.
It's deep on levels. So
I'll go think.
All right,
about
long
that.
walkers. So this is the Quarantine Sucks episode 85. A long walk, short drink.
That's great. I was just thinking like fucked up or something as the title. I feel like the first moments where we transition out of the theme music, if that's even appropriate to have theme music, would be it's just some kind of like, oh, this is so fucked up. But definitely some sort of title about this.
Quarantine sucks.
Everything sucks.
Thanks a lot for listening. I hope that things are not sucking where you are, and if they are sucking, I hope that they stop sucking soon. Just remember that we're all in this together, and don't let them rip us apart. That's and honestly, like you can be the one link that can hold everything together. So don't give up. Um, yeah. I don't even feel like going through the like
Oh no,
long
we
walk,
don't need
short
that.
drink
I
shit.
wasn't
Like
even
just fucking do
anticipating.
that. Like just
Yeah, I wasn't even
yeah, just
anticipating acknowledging the long walker. So
yeah,
yeah,
I
that's
know. But they were you're probably there. So I do appreciate you listening, and I appreciate you, buddy. I appreciate you uh taking the time. Be safe, please be safe. I appreciate the bride. Jeff's good. Is Jeff
oh,
doing all
Jeff.
right?
Jeff is actually doing really well. Thank you. He's got. We have to like kind of wipe his little opening because he doesn't know how to pee. Like
Yeah.
because he doesn't, and it's always been a little bit of an issue. So sometimes he'll just kind of like squat, sometimes he lifts his leg, so he just kind of pees
Yeah.
everywhere. But it's a much better situation than he ever had before.
Did he get the second surgery, like the actual corrective surgery to correct the
Yes,
botch surgery? So that's all done, right? Like,
yeah, he should
he's
be.
on the mend now. Like,
Yes, he's yeah. I don't remember. Like it all feels so long ago. It's so wild to think that.
well,
Like,
the last I heard, he had a second hole that he kept getting
yeah,
urinary infections
yep,
because
and
of that second hole. Like he was,
yeah, and now he has no remnants of a penis of any kind, and so he's just got like an opening down there, but it's not nearly like as raw as it's a different opening than was they closed up the other thing.
the second thing.
Yeah, and then removed any because he used to. I don't know. It's kind of hard to explain, but anyway, he doesn't have any kind of equipment of that sort, and but I don't think he has any kind of pain. So like we wipe him with like those like whatever you call them, flushable wipes, not baby wipes, but just that kind of moist thing every so often, a couple times a day, and he's got no problem with it whatsoever. And so we'd like
Good
to
deal.
start working on his like reactivity because he really can't handle outside stimulus very well. But and actually just yesterday we almost took him to a quasi public like path where we knew there'd be no other off leash dogs and start to see how he just can interact in the world. But yeah, I mean things were very dire for him for a minute, and it was all very stressful for us. And but that's man, it feels like a long time ago, and he's doing great.
And he has the ability to like hold his pee and all that stuff. Though normally, even like he can hold it and wait to go outside to go. Or
Yeah, no, like I couldn't tell you the last time he did anything in the house or anything like that.
Awesome.
The main thing where he had gotten there was that unfortunate thing, like he had that surgery, all this surgery we're talking about, and then he couldn't pee, so we had to take him to the emergency room, and that was something actually not necessarily related to the surgery anyway, but these like crystals forming. But he's doing really quite good, and
good.
Yeah, we're all doing well. So just to tag up, thank you for asking about that, but to tag up on what you're saying, I'm thankful for you also, and for the way that you reached out today, just amidst all that's going on in Minneapolis. And I'm glad this happened, that we got on mic and
yeah,
and,
me too.
Just talk through some feelings.
Yeah, and I hope that hopefully next time we can there's something better to talk about, I guess.
That's a good way to put it. Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, buddy.
All right. Well,
let's sign off,
you guys. Yes.
Yeah.
Be well, my friend. I love you. My best
love
to Ash
you too,
and to all the animals there.
Same to you. Tell the bride I'm grateful for her too, and yeah, you guys take care and keep growing. I'm going to keep doing the same. We're going to do the same thing here.
I like it. Agreed.
All right, buddy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Take care.
All right, man. We'll talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye.